Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's dive straight into why academic referencing is so much more than just a tedious chore you do to avoid getting caught. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by citations, or honestly just worried about accidentally doing something wrong, you are absolutely in the right place.
We're going to kick things off with a pretty hard truth. A lot of students are actually committing academic offenses without even realizing it. They think they're just formatting their papers correctly, but they're falling into some major traps. So today, we're building the ultimate study guide for you, focusing heavily on highly practical tips to make absolutely sure your university writing is ethical, authoritative, and entirely your own. Think of this explainer as your essential study guide syllabus. We're going to run through 1. The truth about academic ethics. 2. Busting common referencing myths. 3. What really is plagiarism? 4. Mastering responsible paraphrasing. 5. Using direct quotes strategically. And finally, 6. Tools, consistency, and credibility. All right, jumping right into Section 1, the truth about academic ethics. So the absolutely crucial point here is that we need to completely reframe how we look at the very foundation of university writing. We often think of ethics as just this annoying set of external rules, right? Like just blindly following APA or Chicago formatting guides to the letter. But true academic ethics, it isn't about memorizing where to stick a comma. It is an internal character trait. It demands honesty and transparency when you're handling other people's data and ideas. Really, it's about respecting the scholars who laid the groundwork before you. And here's why that actually matters. Referencing is basically the mechanism of trust. It roots your argument in a much wider intellectual tradition. Think about it. Your ideas aren't just floating out there in a vacuum. They're built upon the shared foundation of human knowledge. When you reference correctly, you aren't just dodging a penalty. You are actively building true scholarly authority. Let's move on to Section 2, Busting Common Referencing Myths. Okay, the very first myth we need to bust is that citations are just some technical formality, kind of like a decorative list slapped onto the end of your paper. The reality goes way deeper. Citations are literally the epistemological foundation of your entire thought process. If you treat citations like a cosmetic formality that you just tack on at the last minute, your writing becomes completely disconnected from current scholarly discourse. It makes your arguments look, well, incredibly fragile. And here's another huge trap. The myth that referencing is purely an anti-plagiarism shield. Please, do not just use references defensively to stay safe. That's the wrong mindset. Use them confidently to build, support, or even critique ideas. Mature academic writing uses citations to map out exactly where your ideas fit into the broader, ongoing conversation. Which brings us to Section 3. What really is plagiarism? Now, this right here is the trap so many well-intentioned students are falling into as we speak. Let's talk about plagiarism der Verlindung, or hidden plagiarism. Just popping up in a thesaurus and swapping out words with synonyms while keeping the exact original sentence structure, yeah, that's still stealing intellectual property. It basically proves that you haven't actually processed the idea, you are just copying the skeleton of someone else's thought. To keep this study guide intensely practical, let's break down the 3 main forms of plagiarism. First, there's direct copying. That's taking text verbatim, word for word, without quotes or citations. Then there's an ethical paraphrasing, which is exactly that hidden plagiarism we just talked about. And finally, failure to cite. This is when you totally rewrite an idea in your own words, but you fail to attribute the concept to its original creator. Remember, plagiarism isn't some technical glitch. It's a moral failure that stems from taking shortcuts rather than doing the actual work of critical thinking. So how do we fix this? Section 4, Mastering Responsible Paraphrasing. This right here is your absolute foolproof checklist for paraphrasing. Step 1, you read and process the idea deeply. Step 2, set the original text aside. Seriously, literally look away from it. Close the tab if you have to. Step 3, rewrite the concept using your own vocabulary and a completely new sentence structure. Actually changing the physical structure of the sentence is the undeniable proof that you've put in the intellectual work to understand the concept. Just compare these 2 approaches. A weak paraphrase shows cognitive laziness. It retains original clauses and proves you are still highly dependent on the source text. Usually, honestly, because you are looking right at it while typing. A strong paraphrase, on the other hand, proves you have fully assimilated the idea into your own framework without manipulating the original meaning. It is totally rebuilt from the ground up. But what if you absolutely cannot paraphrase? Let's look at Section 5.
Using direct quotes strategically. Definitely write this down for your study guide. Never, ever leave a quote floating isolated in your text. In academia, we call this dropping quotes. Dropping a quote without context completely destroys your authority. It makes you look like a passive compiler of information who is just desperately trying to hit a word count. Now, you should always prioritize paraphrasing, but there are three, and only three, legitimate times you should lean on a direct quote. Number one, conceptual or technical definitions that would lose their exact meaning if you messed with them. Number two, specific, unique terms coined by a particular scholar. And number three, rhetorical power. This is where an argument is so profoundly and perfectly articulated that trying to paraphrase it would completely ruin its impact. And when you decide to use a quote, your voice must always steer the ship. Every single time you drop a quote, you have to immediately follow it up with your own critical interpretation. Explain its relevance, show exactly how it supports your specific thesis, and analyze its broader implications. Do not ever let another scholar's voice drown out your own. Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6, Tools, Consistency, and Credibility. A systematic, beautifully formatted bibliography is basically a mirror. It reflects the true depth of your research. Using reference management software like Zotero or Mendeley is an absolutely brilliant way to eliminate human error. And let's be real, save your sanity at 2 a.m. It frees you up to focus on what actually matters, your arguments. However, we do need to be realistic about technology here. Software can store data, it can organize categories, and it can auto-generate citations. But software cannot determine if your paraphrase is ethical or if a quote is actually relevant to the point you're trying to make. Remember, technology is a fantastic assistant, but it's a terrible shortcut. Ultimately, you are the intellectual agent responsible for accuracy and honesty. And this brings us right to consistency. Mixing up citation styles, having sloppy formatting, or jumping back and forth between styles isn't just a simple typo. It signals to your professor a complete lack of overall intellectual discipline. It's a massive red flag. Maintaining absolute consistency proves you have intellectual control over your manuscript, and it ensures that anyone reading your work can easily trace back and verify your facts. So, we arrive at the ultimate question to wrap up this explainer. Will your academic writing be a passive patchwork of stolen voices, or will it be the undeniable foundation of your very own intellectual authority? Referencing isn't just about avoiding punishment, it's about actively claiming your space in the academic world. Take these practical study guide tools, respect the scholars who came before you, and go build a legacy of genuine, unshakable intellectual credibility.